Good evening. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Jamestown Public School Board to order. It is Monday, June 15th, 2026, and we're in the Thompson Community Room at the middle school. Please note that we had a farewell celebration for Dr. Leck from 4 to 5:15 at the same location. I'd like to welcome all those in the audience this evening. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Does the board have any new conflicts of interest? Any new conflicts of interest? Any new conflicts of interest? If not, school board norms. Jamie, would you be willing to read the school board norms?
Yes. The board developed norms are to share and respect opinions and speak with a united voice once a decision has been reached, execute all duties of the school board in compliance with North Dakota Century Code, properly prepare for meetings, commit to assessing board effectiveness, and ensure high-quality governance for all stakeholders.
Thank you, Jamie. We have no public communication. Moving on to our consent agenda. Would the board like anything removed from the consent agenda or have anything clarified? Anything removed? If not, is there a motion? Motion by Melissa, a second by Steve. We have a motion, a second for approval of the consent agenda. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Moving into our regular meeting, we now have our spring athletics recognition. So as your name is called, please meet me over here, and then we'll have you stand up here and take a picture. Parents, please come forward right in the middle and get a good picture as well.
For baseball, Cody Bush, all conference. Softball, Maddie Hoff, all conference, all state. Avery Graves, all conference. Boys track and field, state champion 4x400 relay and WDA runner-up. Graydon Thorlickson, Heath Hoople, Riker Stoddart, Aiden Scary. We have Cody Barrett, third place shot put WDA and state, WDA runner-up discus, WDA third place javelin, all conference. And Graydon Thorlickson, all conference state champ, and I doesn't say for what. Jared Sagazer, all conference. Heath Hoople, all conference. Aiden Scary, all conference. Riker Stoddart, all conference.
For girls track and field, Lena Hoffer, state third place high jump, WDA champ, high jump, and all conference. Hayden Olson, WDA champ, triple jump, all conference. Addison Young, all conference. Cece Romsdahl, all conference. And Claire Marker, all conference. For girls soccer, Hannah Adelson, all conference. Briella Martin, all conference, all state. And Layla Becker, all conference. For girls tennis, Anna Haronova, all conference, state doubles third place. And Elise Roberts, all conference, state doubles third place. Way to go.
We have nothing under correspondence. Under reports, we have the food service report. It's linked for your information. And we have the finance committee report. Aaron, would you like to report on the finance committee?
Yeah, so since our last report, we had a couple more meetings that the committee met on May 26th and June 10th. The topics were budget review and prioritization, getting prepared for the 2026-2027 budget, review of the community eligibility provision, food lunch program, and then central office restructuring. So with all the changes that have been put in front of us, to go over that and look at some adjustments there. Some investment and grant opportunities, and then also we had a brief discussion about performing some additional comparative analysis to help apply some context to the salaries for the different positions and groupings. So with the budget review and priorities, it was kind of just a carryover from previous discussions and continuing to update based on latest information, incorporating the changes that we have talked about, addressing the priorities, listing of 15 different priorities that we've applied to the budget. And then from where we started last year with $1.5 million deficit approximately, we're with everything that we've been working on, basically cut that deficit in half, and that assumes that we fill all the positions. So I think from a proactive and addressing the deficit, I think we've gotten significant progress on that, with some additional opportunities identified to reduce that deficit even further in upcoming years. So I think we're on the right path to getting closer to that balanced budget. In regards to the CEP, so Cindy Wall did a quite extensive financial analysis of that based on requests of, is this an opportunity that we want to try to pursue? Her evaluation and analysis basically stated that we would be engaged in a significant level of deficit spending as a result of that, close to 6 figures. So we decided at this point that's not something that we should be diving into. There's some other changes, legislative changes, that we decided that would be best to hold off, see how that turns out before we engage in increased deficit spending. With the central office restructuring, so with a new superintendent, with the business manager's assistant position, not being able to fill that, we talked about shifting roles and responsibilities across multiple positions with the business manager, the accounting supervisor, and human resource generalist. And with that, the shifting of those roles and responsibilities, what should the compensation model look like for each of those? And so we reviewed those in detail, and then which culminated into the recommendation that is on the agenda for action later on in the meeting here. And some of those responsibilities that we talked about were Title IX administration, several different financial roles in their communications, and then also facilitating grants and investments and how those are going to be taken on by the staff in the central office. And then with that, the grants and investments, Christy has been working with local banks and reviewing how our accounts are serviced, and she did identify an opportunity that would gain us some additional revenue, and with Dakota Bank, and so we're putting that recommendation forward to the board as an action item to be able to open up those accounts and be able to realize that revenue. We did have a brief review of the clean diesel grant opportunity, but that was very preliminary at this point. It's just kind of put out there for something we're looking at. And then finally, with the comparative analysis, so there's a data, it's almost a database of information that's put out there by the North Dakota Department of Instruction. I put a link in the report, but that financial data just gives us so much information and allows us to potentially apply some additional context to what's administrative percentages in terms of salaries, to the total budget, to the teacher salaries, so just different perspectives we can utilize and look at. So when we're making recommendations in the future on how we want to, structure our district or consider different specific details, we can have that data to lean on to provide us some information. So we didn't really get into the analysis itself in our last meeting, but it was, I don't know, maybe Dan already wrote up a spreadsheet or something, I'm guessing, but it's just, the discussion was, it's out there, let's use it, and then start applying it for future discussions. And with that, any questions for either myself or Dan or Heidi, I guess?
Any questions? Jason, go ahead.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, the recommended salaries that we'll be voting on later, and then that data you were just talking about, those two were correlated together, and correct me if I'm wrong, and then we're going to use that going forward for future discussions?
So the data set from North Dakota Department of Instruction was only talked about, it wasn't, what we used for the salary recommendations was primarily a direct comparative analysis across other districts. And then we did look at some percentages of comparison to business manager to superintendent. We looked at just absolute comparisons. So we did dice it I would say in a typical way for this recommendation. That additional data set wasn't really dived into in depth because it was just shared with us as this is something that is available to us. We can start using it.
Yeah, I'll give a little extra context because I did dive into the data after we did have that meeting. And so all the numbers that we have they're in the ballpark. They're all, again, there's a lot of data to parse through. And depending on the district, some favor higher central office staffing over ours. But when you look at our overall data, all the factors kind of pointed to the recommendation that we have in there right now as being, I guess I'd call it fairly middle of the road. And again, more of that data as we parse out more, we'll get more fine-tuned on all the positions within central office and teaching staff, support staff, and other expenditures in comparison to other parts of North Dakota.
Well, I guess we can have some of this discussion too during the next part, if that's more prudent, or.
Yeah, if you have questions, go ahead.
Well, another question would be the restructuring here, payroll and accounting supervisor and human resource generalist. We have the HR generalists now, and then the payroll and accounting supervisor we have now, or these are just reassignment of duties due to the?
I can talk
a
briefly about that.
position.
We had a position that we can't fill, and so we are restructuring duties to share the key responsibilities for the position we can't fill to the HR generalist and accounts payable positions and the business manager, because we can fill that position with a lower level, but we can't find the employee that we had, so at least that level of employee that we have. So we're taking the data entry, making it more data entry, and then sharing those duties over with the other business office. Hopefully that made sense.
So are there revised job descriptions for these positions? Are they attached to our agenda? Are they available?
They are not attached, but we can make them available.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from the board at this time? Okay. Aaron, anything else to add? Okay.
No, nothing from my
Okay.
side.
Thank you for doing the report. Thank you, Dan, for assisting with that. We're going to move into board education and strategic plan monitoring. We have a dashboard, and Dr. Leck is we're going to look at goal 5.1, and 5.2, close facility funding gap and goal, and increase staff well-being. And so, Dr. Leck, take it away.
Okay, so you have the presentation in front of you that has the progress monitoring, the resource management and planning. We have two separate goals, 5.1 and 5.2. From 5.1, that is to close the funding gap. We're well aware on our 10-year capital projects plan that we have a significant deficit in our financial need versus our ability or the revenue that we can generate during that 10-year span. We can cover about a third of those needs. And so right now, the primary metric is to close that funding gap by 2034. But the metric to do that right now, and I'll have a recommendation for this soon and where we can start to shift this, but the primary metric is to look at the 100% of the annual building fund allocation, and that we have devoted 100% of that to our prioritized facility needs. So if you look at this next slide, our estimated revenue, about 1.1 million. That includes the building fund, that includes special assessment. So a total of 12 mills. Estimated expenditures, 1.3 million. So that includes our summer projects of just over $1 million, plus debt financing for the middle school green space and the Washington campus improvements. And I did make a note on there, just a reminder for debt servicing that is completed in 28, 29. And then 187,000 for the special assessments that are recognized in that 2 mills of special assessments. So you can see we're pretty clearly spending over what that allocation is. We talked about that when we approved our summer projects, that we were eating into that building fund carryover to address priority needs. So if you look at the next slide in the deck, the priority needs, if you remember, or if you've spent a lot of time in the capital projects plan, you know that we have articulated each of those needs over that 10-year span, and we've categorized them into priorities. Our number one priority, facility availability and preventative maintenance. Our second highest priority, facility safety and quality. Next, we have facility and district efficiencies, and our lowest priority is technology and expanded capabilities. So if you look at that chart, you see that 89% of that allocation is to our highest facility need, availability and preventative maintenance. 8% devoted to facility safety and quality, which is our next level. 3% to facility and district efficiencies, and less than 1% was devoted to our lowest level of facility needs, which is technology and expanded capability. So obviously, we are, as I said, overspending. So we're committing more than what we allocated or what our target is in our metric by about 18.5%. But additional work needs to be done to close the funding gap. We're looking at that year to year, but there's a significant gap even if we spend 100% of our allocation each year. There's still a significant gap. And so from an action step standpoint, we need to look at an annualized goal that projects the closure by 2034, and not just that we're going to spend 100%. There's quite a bit of gap that we're going to need to close, and we need to do that. We need to be a little bit more aggressive, and I want to talk about that a little bit too, because the reality is without some kind of infusion of capital, our building fund itself is not going to be enough. And so we need to start again, re-exploring what needs to happen from either an expenditure standpoint or a revenue standpoint to address those needs. So there's a lot of work still to be done. This is a very simple goal as it's written with one metric, but it is a big issue to solve in this district. And so there's a significant amount of time and resources going to be spent around this action step or around this goal that we need to think about. One suggestion might be, we've had a lot of discussion around different strategies to address the facility gap and how we have what we call our facility footprint and what the needs are. While that may be a referendum, in the past we've asked our community where they're at with referendums and with a couple different referendums, and that has not been successful. And I say that has been not the right plan and not the right time. But other things that we have to start to, or we need to continue to look at are what are other ways that we could look to address some of that facility gap. And I gave one example of things that we haven't had a lot of discussion around yet, but that could be a solution to help us. And that just relates to restructuring our elementary. What if our elementary was K through 4 and our middle school was 5 through 8 and our high school was 9 through 12? That might match the footprint of declining enrollment in a different way. We did have that conversation at our Enrollment and Facilities Task Force, but that has not been a solution that this board has explored. It might be one to consider moving forward. The next goal relates to Resource Management Planning 5.2, and that is supporting educator sustainability and well-being through intentional planning and resource allocation. You can see there's a couple different metrics there. 2 of those relate to the Vital Network surveys that we now have some trend data on that. That includes the staff survey, at least in those 3 subsections of that assessment, and then what we call staying power indicators. And the last one was, you heard a board education last meeting on exit interviews. And so that's been embedded here as well. And I'm not going to read each of these metrics, but again, our goal is 5.0. You're aware of that standard which we have set as a 5.0 in all of our vital network metrics. And you can see we have some varied results in terms of gaining to that 5.0 threshold. And there are some trends in which we are seeing some declines in those scores from the last time we took this assessment. I will say the scores here compare from October from our assessment. So we're going to see a similar assessment in October, a baseline. And so you might see some shift from there, but these are numbers that represent our October data points. If you go through workload management, you're going to see again some decline or maintenance there, and one that has stayed relatively the same, but some good growth opportunities as well, and some that are right on the cusp of being at that 5.0. But again, the concern would be seeing declining trends. You can see on the far right-hand side, you can see some declining trends from our baseline from 2 years ago to our baseline from this October. In Hope, that metric area, you see a little difference there, achieving above that in a couple of the different areas, and then again, just a little bit below those in other areas of this subsection. Staying power indicators, you see where we are at there. And again, if you use that 5.0 as kind of the standard, we're right at, we're above and then right at that cusp for that 5.0. Staying power indicators for job satisfaction, you see where we're at, above that threshold and climbing. And then in retention strategy, again, you see above that 5.0 or right at it, and then one of those is climbing, the other two staying pretty consistent. I'm not going to touch on this because you just had a board education that outlined your exit interviews that Mrs. Jamgard gave last meeting. And happy to talk about them if you'd like me to, but that's where we're at with the exit interviews. The key takeaways for me, from a goal analysis standpoint, what I thought was interesting is most of our staff feel very positive about the school as a place to work, and they would recommend working in that school. The sentiment is stronger, and it varies between levels. We see significantly disparate responses from elementary to secondary, and I think there's something there that we need to explore. And why is that we're seeing such a difference in perspective of the same experience at different levels? So I think that's an area that we need to explore. Belonging and leadership were bright spots, and they consistently have been bright spots as we've done, as we continued vital work. But again, there's varying extremes at different levels, and that cutoff seems to be elementary and secondary mostly. Staying power indicators, again, they vary by level, and they vacillate between strong commitment and disengagement. So we're seeing not a lot of middle of the ground. It's either very strong or disengaged. So there's some root, there's some exploration into the antecedent behind that I think still bears some work. The one that's not related to level was tenure. So staff with long tenure and those in mid-career most often described feeling cared for and empowered, but that band of 21 to 25 years and those that withheld experience, because it's an option, you don't have to respond. But those two bands report more strain. So again, you're seeing a very similar response to the same environment and experiences. So they experience those things in different ways. So from my perspective, in next steps, we have a great mechanism to have these conversations and explore. It's the Communications Committee. And I would suggest that we monitor these areas closely, continue to monitor them in our next progress monitoring cycle, but that we also refer some of these conversations to our Communications Committee to get a little deeper into why is it that we're seeing disparate experiences in the same environment. So from a recommended action standpoint, we are either, depending on how you want to consider that, you have either exceeded or met strategic goal 5.1 and goal 5.2 is not met. So with that, I would stand for questions.
Any questions at this point? And I would go also accept a motion to accept the report. Dan?
I move we accept the report as presented.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Second from Jamie. We have a motion, a second to accept the report on goal 5.1 and 5.2. Any discussion? And we will refer to Communications Committee. So yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to ask a reminder of when a goal is not met, what is our usual process? Is that spelled out, or is that kind of dependent upon what the not met is?
Well, it would go to the Strategic Plan Committee to review the goal itself, any mitigating strategies that we might want to consider. It goes to central office to look at, different areas we can intervene. But primarily, it would go to the board's committee.
Any other discussion? Aaron?
Yeah, I can just comment on that. I guess the response is it depends. It could be a metric that was put in place that's not achievable. It could be we're not doing enough to achieve that goal, so what is an action plan that we need to engage in to close the gap? So it depends on the situation, but it basically drives us to an analysis and then an action to do something.
And we can also dive a little deeper into the details as well of different levels and maybe refer some things as well to different levels as needed through working through administration to do that.
And that's why I think the Communications Committee is the best next action step, because you're looking, particularly because what this goal is, that's the mechanism what we already have in place that's already an effective measure to have conversations about staff workload, staff environment, staff experiences. So I think having that would be the next best action step that would inform the board and the administration on what else could happen.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion? We have a motion, a second, to accept the report on Goal 5.1 and 5.2. If no other discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Next on our agenda is the superintendent's report, and you can take as long as you want on this one.
So you have my written report. I'm going to start on page 1 with community eligibility provision recommendation. As Mr. Roberts had discussed earlier, we did have some discussion in the Finance Committee around the CEP. So if you remember, on April 20th, we talked about the CEP. It is another pathway to support our families that are unable to afford food service. So in a CEP, as the current system is, families apply, and if they reach certain income thresholds, they're eligible for free or reduced meals. In CEP, if you become eligible for community eligibility provision at a building level, all of the students, regardless of income threshold, would be eligible for free and reduced. So what we did at our April 20th meeting was refer that to finance so that could be explored in greater detail. Not very many districts or schools in North Dakota are eligible for CEP. It's one of those great ideas, but we had to look at, is this viable? And the cost analysis, as Mr. Roberts had referenced, it's unfortunately not viable right now. I do think it's something that we continue to monitor, because if that was something we could offer to our families, I think that would be great. But if you look even at every school level, we did anticipate some gap, some level of deficit spending by building. I don't know that I expected it to be to this level. It really does become an unaffordable pathway when we already have a pathway to support the neediest families. So that wouldn't change. Whether we go to CEP or whether we maintain the current model, which the bulk of districts and the bulk of schools utilize, our neediest families still have pathways for free and reduced meals. It would just be, what about everybody else? And so if you look at that, well, you can look at deeper in the cost analysis, but I did break it down by building. At Gustner, that would be negative 58,000. At Lincoln, negative 33. Louis L'Amour, negative 23,000. And Roosevelt, negative almost 39,000. So if you look at that, even if we did CEP just at 3 of our buildings, that's still a $90,000+ deficit to what we're already doing, which is already in a deficit for food service. We already subsidize our food service department, so this would be an additional $90,000 into that fund. If you add all of our elementary schools, which is what we initially had discussed as, maybe as a potential option, that puts it at $150,000 on top of what we already are deficit spending, and it's just not a viable option. I wish that it was, but it just isn't. I do think it's something that we should continue to look at. It may be for naught. There is a referendum that's coming in November for universal meals, which I know the board is very familiar with. And if that were to be successful, my understanding is that all schools would become CEP schools, and that would be the mechanism that the state would receive federal funds through the CEP program, and that would subsidize what the state needs to provide for universal meals. So CEP is still potentially on our horizon, but regardless of what happens in November, or if that were to fail in November, I think this CEP is something that we should just continue to have and monitor, and at some point maybe that is the right fit for the district. I just can't recommend it being the right fit right now. And like I said, if it does pass, then you'll become a lot more familiar with CEP. The next item is the CDL program update. Now, I'm showing this just because this is a primer for something that might be coming later. I wanted to just lay a foundation. We have expanded our CTE to include a CDL program for students. Mr. Gaylor and Mrs. Eckert have created a proposal for a full-time CDL training program that would not only serve high school students, but it would also serve the community. So the proposal itself identifies that we could provide one high school block for CDL and then 2 winter adult CDL cohorts that would impact 20 to 24 adults annually, and then summer CDL opportunities for high school students, and then regional bus driver training, sub-driver training, and then other potential opportunities for employer training and workforce partnerships. What this proposal provides, and again, you're not being asked to act on this because you're going to want to review the presentation or review the proposal and process the request, and there'll be time for a future action item on this. But what I'm really excited about this opportunity is that it takes us back to the 70s and CTE. When CTE really started expanding into public schools, there was a community aspect. And as time has gone on, the focus has become much more on students, especially high school students, and the community side of that has dipped and waned a bit. And what I like about this proposal is it works to bring that back. If you look in our workforce needs, CDL is a significant workforce need in North Dakota, but in our region, in the ag fields, in industry, there's a huge need, CDL for buses. There's a huge need for CDL in our community, and CTE has an opportunity to respond to that. And so, again, I'm just laying the foundation out there. At a future meeting, I'm guessing that Mr. Gale will be bringing a full proposal to you to consider that for the future. But again, right now, I am just looking to lay the foundation. From a board retreat standpoint, that will be on June 25th at 5:30. Be on the lookout. You may have a special board meeting planned for right before that, so maybe at 5:15, there might be a special board meeting to act on an action item. But that hasn't been finalized yet, but I think you can anticipate a 5:15 special meeting. And then encouraged to invite Mrs. Mindy Skunberg as well to that board retreat, and to have her participate as a newly elected board member. So if you have any additional agenda topics outside of the Guiding Coalition and those discussions that we've already planned for the board retreat, make sure that you talk to Mr. Gaylor or Dr. Larson. Board committees, as I've done in the past, I include a draft, and I put in all caps, draft, board committee membership. The board committees are not for the central office to decide, they're for the board to decide. But what I do have done is I just look at what's been done in the past. What were the last year's committee memberships? And if we have a new board member, which we do coming on board in July, we just replace the outgoing person with the new person. That's just for planning. That doesn't mean that I'm suggesting or recommending these as committees. It is what the board wants to do and decide. But if you have, so all of the committees that Mr. Tweeten was a part of, then we have Mrs. Skunberg is listed for those. So if you have suggestions on committees that you don't wish to serve on or those that you wish to serve on, contact Dr. Larson, and there'll be plenty of time for that discussion throughout the next month, and that is likely to be finalized in July. So the last thing I have is the spotlight, and I want to offer congratulations to Mrs. Mindy Skunberg for being elected to the Jamestown School Board. And I also want to thank Mr. Tweeten for his years of service and dedicated service to Jamestown Public Schools. And I know that he doesn't want me to bring this up, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. I want to recognize Jason Rohr. Mr. Rohr was reappointed to the State Board of Education by Governor Kelly Armstrong, and this begins his second term. And I have great appreciation for those that fulfill these These types of responsibilities, they give our leaders in Jamestown additional insight, and they give us voice in state-level government. And so there is a great time commitment to these, and I want to thank you, Jason, for taking that additional responsibility and sharing our voice in Jamestown with that board. So with that, I would stand for questions.
Jamie, go ahead.
I know you didn't really touch on this, but I wanted to talk about the new hire recommendations. I guess I was under the impression at our last meeting that the Dean of Students position would be open for for Adam's old position, but this reads kind of like that Jada and Brian will kind of be taking some of those responsibilities,
Yep.
and Nancy would be backfilling their positions?
That is correct. That is what, so if I articulated that in a differently than what you heard, that I'll take that responsibility. But our intention was to do exactly that, to share time with the extended contracts that come up, to share some of Adam's responsibilities. The Dean of Students position would be used to support Mrs. Anderson and Mr. Knox, and so it becomes a true Dean of Students position because they're working alongside two different administrators to gain an administrative experience. Yeah.
Any other questions regarding the superintendent report? I am glad we did take our time looking at the CEP for the free lunches. It took some time and analysis, and I'm glad we didn't act too quickly on that. I think it was something that we were hopeful that was going to work out, and hopefully something will work out in the future, but at this time, it's a very costly for us to head down that road. Anything else from anybody else? Okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Leck. We have nothing under old business. Under new business, we have nothing under activities, buildings, grounds. Under curriculum assessment and instruction, we have A, approval of the curriculum purchase for 2026 to 2027 school year. Is there a motion? Motion by Jamie. Is there a second? Second by Steve. We have a motion, a second for approval of curriculum purchase for the 2026 to 2027 school year. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any questions for Mr. Gaylor? Okay. If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Under finance, we have 2 action items and then 2 for informational. Can we do we have to do those separate, Christy? Probably have to do these separate. A, approval to open financial accounts at Dakota Bank. Is there a motion? Motion by Aaron, second by Dan. We have a motion, a second for approval to open financial accounts at Dakota Bank. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. B, approval of agreement with the Village Family Services. Is there a motion? Motion by Steve. Is there a second? Second by Dan. We have a motion, a second for approval and agreement with Village Family Services. And this is the same agreement that we've done. Would you want to comment?
Provide mental health counseling for our students K through 12 all year long, including in the summer. Our students are able to access. This is funded through the behavioral health grant, so it isn't a general fund expenditure, but we've been able to access behavioral health grant to do that. No cost change from the last couple of years.
Thank you. So we have a motion, a second for approval of the agreement with the Village Family Services. Any other discussion? Jason, go ahead.
Does that grant expire?
So we never know from year to year, but I think there's, we're going to be able to find alternative sources to fund. But
Any other questions or discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. And then the general fund balance and the monthly financials are there for your information. Any questions for Christy at this time? Okay. Under operations, review of draft board committee assignments. That is also there for your information, so you can review those in your availability and send me any requests, and we'll look them all over and try to make sure that we have all of our committees covered. Under personnel, ratification of administrators revised master agreement for the 2026 to 2027. Is there a motion? Motion by Dan, second by Jason. We have a motion and a second for ratification of Administrator's Revised Master Agreement for the 2026 to 2027. Dan, did you want to make any comments on that at this time, or any questions for Dan or Jason? Okay. Okay.
There was no change based on what we discussed last time. They just agreed to the same provisions, so it's as I briefed last time.
Thank you for your work. So we have a motion and a second for approval of the ratification of Administrator's Revised Master Agreement 2026 for 2027. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Approval of the resignation at the conclusion of the 2025 to 2026 school year. Number 1, Cindy Wall. Number 2, Tiffany Dawson. Is there a motion? Motion by Dan. Is there a second? Second by Steve. We have a motion and a second for approval of resignation of the conclusion of the 2025 to 2026 school year. Number 1, Cindy Wall. Number 2, Tiffany Dawson. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved, and thank you for your service to our district. C, approval to hire for the 2026 to 2027 school year upon a successful background check and appropriate licensure. Number 1, Nancy Anderson. Is there a motion? Motion by Aaron. Second by Dan. We have a motion, a second to approve to hire for the 2026 to 2027 school year upon a successful background check and appropriate licensure for Nancy Anderson. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Approval extended contracts for the 2026 to 2027 school year. Number 1, Teresa Olson. Number 2, Bonnie Milkey. Number 3, Heidi Eckert. 4, Brian Knox. And 5, Jada Anderson. Is there a motion? Motion by Janie. Second by Aaron. We have a motion and a second for approval of extended contracts for 2026 to 2027, 1 through 5. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Approval of the Finance Committee staffing recommendations. Is there a motion? Motion. Oh,
I would move that we consider each of these positions separately.
okay. How's the board?
Sure.
Yeah.
I would move that we consider the Finance Committee salary recommendation as business manager, payroll and accounting supervisor, and human resource generalist, as opposed to one lump group of employees.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Second, we have a motion and a second on the floor for going through them, approving them individually. Any discussion? Jason?
Yeah, I guess I requested that so that we don't just, we can have a little bit of discussion on, I'll be honest, I'm going to have a hard time voting for these without, and I would like to see a job description. I'd like to have more information about specifically how these duties are going to be assigned and divvied up. I mean, again, this is nothing personal against anybody in these positions, but, a $32,000 to $33,000 raise for our business manager makes quite a statement to our community. I'm not necessarily saying it's not warranted, but I think we need to think about that. And I guess questions for the committee or whoever would have the info would be, we hear a lot about peer groups. We hear a lot about, we want to make sure that our employees are within peer groups. I know Mr. Tweeten said that he, per usual, dived into the statistic or the data. I guess I would like to know who we are considering our business managers' peer groups for duties, for the overall central office structure compared to other districts. Is there any more insight to that?
Aaron? Go ahead.
Yeah, so there was, I don't know if it was 8 different comps that we use for comparison with our typical districts that we compare against. The roles of those business managers in those districts, there's just such a great disparity between what we're doing and what a competitive rate is for that position. And then also, one of the reasons for grouping them, and we don't have to, but a rationale for grouping them is there was, in the discussion with in the Finance Committee, there was a lot of, this person's going to take on this person's going to take on that, and it was just a lot of moving parts, hence the restructuring aspect of it. It wasn't simply, this person should get more money. Well, no, is this person's going to take on Title IX responsibilities now from this person. This person's going to take on this financial leadership responsibility. And then, so there was kind of a lot of moving parts to it. And that's kind of the rationale for the grouping. But I hear what you're saying as far as, if you want to do them separately, then what that potentially might lead to is we can't simply readjust somebody internally then to do a certain position. We're just going to have to try harder to fill a position that we haven't been able to fill. Just as a potential scenario, unintended consequence there. So, but I do understand what you're saying is, we did have the conversation on, these are the roles and responsibilities that are changing. And we felt comfortable with the direction that we were going to go with, hence the recommendation. But it is a, trust but verify situation. So that's I think, a valid question there. But yeah, so that's all.
Go ahead, Melissa.
Yeah, I guess I'm having a little bit of a problem here too with the business manager position moving up in salary again. I realize that we're having more duties, and it's not a personal thing. It's just 6 months into the job, she was given a significant bump in pay, which was unprecedented, to do that 6 months in. And then she's been getting raises each year. I understand she's doing more training and she's doing things, and she's going to be getting more duties. However, as I look at how much her salary has jumped in comparison to everyone else in the district, it is pretty significant. And I have a really hard time justifying such large increments at once for one specific position there. And I, too, agree with Jason that it would be nice to be able to see kind of what that breakdown is of those positions. And then just kind of know where the other two positions were at and how much of a bump they're getting, because I see what we want to give them, but I was kind of looking through trying to find out what they're currently making, and I wasn't able to find it real quickly. So even to have that information so I know how much of a bump there is in each of those would be helpful.
Dan, go ahead.
Okay, so just to clarify, the motion on the table is to separate these into 3 separate motions. Is that the discussion point? And then do we want to have a discussion on each one as you're going through?
No,
It's a point of, or do you
Yeah.
want to have a discussion?
So we
for
do
all-
have a motion and a good
Yeah.
point of order, Dan. We have a motion and a second for separating them. And so the discussion should center around separating them out, which you lean toward in your discussion, but that's the motion that's currently on the table. Dr. Leck?
Just as a, maybe a point of order, I'm not sure that you need a motion to separate these. You can just make a motion that separates. If you want to have a discussion to say, let's talk about this position, you can have the discussion and then make the motion to I move to support the Finance Committee recommendation for position A. and you can just make that rather than a separate motion. I don't believe that you would need a motion to separate, but.
And that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't all or nothing kind of, situation.
Rush to make us
Right.
a motion.
Okay.
So we do have a motion and a second unless the motion is withdrawn.
I will withdraw my motion if it's legal to do so, with the understanding that it's not just all or that.
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
discuss each position.
Okay.
It wasn't, it just, that was the recommendation that came from the Finance Committee, so that's how it was listed on the agenda. But it can, within that, it can be dealt with. Melissa, are you comfortable with withdrawing your second? Okay. So if someone would like to make a motion for letter E for the approval of the Finance Committee staffing recommendations. Dan?
Okay, I'll recognize your statement. I move that we recommend we go ahead with the human resource generalist as identified in the report.
Okay, we have a motion for the human resource generalist as identified in the report. Is there a second? Second from Aaron. We have a motion and a second for the we have 3 positions, so it's the human resource generalist position. Any discussion? Rob?
I just want to say for clarity, that's at 62,000, which is the recommendation from the Finance Committee.
Jamie?
And do we know offhand what bump that was, like Melissa had asked from?
She's currently at 57,505.
Dan?
And yeah.
Can I just clarify, that will be for July 1st salary
Okay.
with the raise?
And that was a conversation when we went through all of these, is as we reshuffled things, some more duties went to some people. And so the net total of all of them, I think, was a total raise of, I thought we had that number of something less than like 5,000. That the total package of work going to these individuals was a net raise of about 5,000 total, if I recall correctly. From those 2 positions, yes. Yeah.
If I may, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page, with the payroll and accounting supervisor, human resource generalist, then we had the assistant business manager position. That's the position we've been unable to fill, and we're going to replace that with a data entry, which is a lower salary or lower wage position. And that's what Dan is talking about, between the payroll accounting supervisor, human resource generalist, and then the difference between the data entry and the assistant business manager position, that would be about 5,000. It was less than that. It was, I don't know the exact number, but it was something in that range. But I just want to reinforce that we're taking an assistant business manager position, making that a data entry position, which that's a position we believe we can fill.
And we have people that already work in that area that have those skills that we need for that assistant position. And so we're kind of divvying it up basically between the 3 of them. Jason?
Yeah, referring back to, and I don't have Board Memo 123, which was presented to us for this transition. With where we're at, with what we've done so far and what we would like to do we have a new net cost to the district or net savings to the district? You know, we had it outlined to if we would go with an interim superintendent, business manager, CT, director shift. Do we have an updated? Because my understanding would be the dean of students now, that's only going to be a $20,000 difference. Do you understand my question?
Yep, that doesn't change, the Dean of Students there's no change. It's still 20,000, it was 20,000 in the proposal. The difference would be what I had recommended for Mr. Gaylor's salary and what you offered in the motion. That difference was, I don't know how much that was, I don't remember. About 15,000, that would be the net change between the business manager position and the the superintendent position. If you look at about a $5,000 increase, we didn't discuss those other positions in there in the loss of the assistant business manager. So I guess the net would be a $10,000 savings if you include all of what we've talked about today in all of those positions. From
Jacob?
I'm going to come at this from a bit of a different angle. So with the 3 positions we're talking about, we're kind of dissolving a position, filling that with to the 3 people we have, we're distributing those and then adding a 4th, right? That's with the data entry. Yeah. So a couple concerns, comments. The additional roles that people are taking, so we're compensating them for additional duties. Is that a viable long-term strategy? Is that something that those people are prepared to handle or to do the rest of their careers? Are we risking a burnout? Are we leaving ourselves the ability to remove those duties and apply them to a new role or to the original role that we're dissolving in the future if we determine that this plan just didn't work out? How are these people who have now had higher salaries for however many years going to feel when we take that away if we're needing to, or how does that work with our contract structure?
So thank you for asking that question. Those individuals are aware of the duties that they are being asked to take on and feel they have the bandwidth to accomplish those duties for the long term. That was a conversation that was held. For those particular individuals, the HR generalist, accounts payable, we wanted to make sure that we had their support to make those changes moving forward. So expectation is long term.
So we have a motion, a second on the table for approval of the HR generalist position as stated. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Christy, can we do a roll call for this?
Jamie Bear? Yes. Heidi Larson?
Yes.
Jason Rohr?
Yes.
Jacob Meyer?
Yes.
Dan Tweeten?
Yes.
Aaron Roberts?
Yes.
Stephen Belkamp?
Yes.
And Melissa Gleason? Unanimous, 8-0.
Motion approved. So we have one of the 3 positions addressed in the Finance Committee staffing recommendations. Is there a motion?
I move
Aaron?
to approve for the payroll and accounting supervisor salary to be $60,000.
We have a motion for the payroll and accounting supervisor as stated in the report, $60,000. Second by Dan. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Sorry to sound like a broken record here, but this person does exist currently, or
Correct.
this person,
Yeah.
sorry.
The only position that has yet to be filled is our data entry position.
And so we will no longer be looking for an assistant
Correct.
businessman. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Melissa?
What is the payroll and accounting supervisor currently making, and what duties have been added?
So while Christy looks for that, these are skills that, with the open position, we we were needing someone with some experience in this area. So go ahead, Christy.
So she is at 54,800. And she is taking on all of the accounts payable and accounts receivable, in addition to payroll and quarterly report and all her other regular duties. And she also supervising the office assistant position.
Audit prep.
And, yep,
Audit prep would be, she has some responsibility for that now, but she would take all or the bulk of audit prep. That was the assistant business manager would fall onto her. Ish. Yep.
Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second on the table for the accounting supervisor position as stated. Any other discussion? Okay. If not, Christy, roll call.
Jamie Bear. Heidi Larson.
Yes.
Jason Rohr.
Yes.
Jacob Meyer. Dan Tweeten. Aaron Roberts. Steve Veldkamp. Melissa Gleason. 8-0 unanimous. Pass.
Motion approved. So we have 2 of the 3 positions in the Finance Committee staffing recommendations. Is there a motion? Dan?
I move we approve a salary of $140,000 per year for the business manager.
We have a motion on the table to approve the business manager salary at $140,000. A second from Aaron. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Melissa?
The same question, what is the current salary and what duties are being added?
Current salary is 107, I don't know, 300 something.
Dan, go ahead.
We discussed this significantly during the Finance Committee discussion. How do we, first of all, how did we set the baseline when we first hired? And, you know, I was part of that discussion when we first hired it. We were looking at, you know, generally speaking, what was it, the market looking at like at that point? I think we came in on the low side at that point. And once you come in on the low side, you don't have a lot of room for recovery. And looking at the market right now and the ratios, both from a business manager to the size of the district to the ratio with what teachers' pay is, the 140,000 was actually, you know, pretty much right where we needed to be. And that's kind of where the idea was, okay, we may have had it wrong back when we first opened up the position. This is a chance for us to make it right. Now we have got baseline numbers for all of our folks that we have from a salary basis. No, we've looked at that from teachers, support staff, administrators. Every cycle we've made some improvements on the catch up. I think this is one of the years that we catch up on the business manager.
Aaron?
Yeah, another justification we looked at too was, you know, what is this position worth, not what we can get away with. With the changes in the central office and taking on the leadership role of finance versus a supporting role, facilitating the grants and the investments. So this is where, you know, Christy's gone out of her way to take on those additional duties and get us that additional revenue. So there should be recognition for that level of activity as well. And just, you know, if we had to open this as a new position, it's going to be probably something north of 140 to get a quality person in place. So this is a realignment, in my opinion.
Any other discussion? Jason?
I don't know, I'm sorry. There's still just not enough here for me to be able to justify this kind of a raise. And what I struggle with most, and it's nobody's fault, it's like peer group, in this side of the mouth, it's peer group. This side of the mouth, we're talking about, market value, those kinds of things. I just really struggle, and again, yes, I'm not sure how much value I'm able to put into, okay, we're down one person at the central office, but we're realigning duties. And of course, nobody wants to shortchange any employee. That's not what I'm saying. And I don't want to just base it on district size, but, I just can't justify paying our business manager the same as a district that's 2.5 times our size, like Dickinson or Mandan. I just struggle with that. And again, I'm not saying it's not worth looking at again. I just have a real hard time being able to justify that to our constituents.
Aaron?
So another point that we discussed on this as well is, to your point to some of the larger districts, they have significant support staff along with that, whereas we're somewhat limited on the support staff. So there's some of that plays into the recommendation as well.
Jason?
I looked into some of that too, and we're very comparable to some other districts our size as far as the number of people our business manager supervises and total staff. Now, everyone's job description is going to be different, and I'm not denying that Christy's going to have more to do, and I'm not denying that she deserves a somewhat substantial raise. I just can't justify this kind of raise in 1 year.
Jason, are you looking at the raise itself, or are you looking at the position?
Well, I'm looking at both.
Okay.
And again,
Because I'm
no-
with you,
no-
I'm with you on the raise part, but also looking at that position, even in the midst of, even if we look at our administrative levels, where per day, so those are some other things on top of, and there will be some additional, we're going to have one less administrator in the central office now too, so there's going to be some additional responsibilities just with that as well, so.
question I forgot to ask. The number of days don't change, right? It's
Correct.
240
Correct.
or 260?
Yeah,
260.
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
correct.
Doesn't change.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dan, go ahead.
And I'll bring up that comparative analysis, start to bring up that comparative analysis, that even that rough one that we started doing, which there's a lot more data to go parse through on this one. But even just the rough numbers comparing across 16 different districts, our ratio of general admin to the total instruction is probably on the bottom third of the districts that we compared. There are some districts where we have literally 3 times as much central office ratio to instructional personnel as we do. That was one of my kind of deciding factors when looking at this, saying this, yeah, it looks like a lot right now, but this realigns us, and it does it in one shot, so we don't have to go back and look at it and revalidate it. So for me personally, that was a very important part of trying to get a realignment as fast as we can, so we know what we're dealing with in the future.
Could you say that first part again?
The ratios of look at just the central office versus those who are related to that, the instructional. That ranges anywhere from like 8% to 26%. Actually, it ranges from like 5% to like 26%. So there's a pretty wide range in how people structure the duties to run a district. Now, we'll parse through this more, but just even the rough raw numbers are, I think, in that ballpark that says we're not out of bed with other districts in terms of our administrative staff.
With the recommendation.
Yes, with that recommendation.
Melissa?
And again, as always, it's not that I don't think people in the district deserve money. I'm just really struggling with, this is the second or third time within the time frame that Christy has been hired that we have adjusted the salary to try to bring that up. And I realize we're adding more duties, and I realize that she has gone through additional training and things, but I just really have a hard time adjusting all at once, because we've never adjusted everybody. I mean, we're talking about a $33,000 jump here. And we have not done that with anybody else in the district. We have moved them up over 2 or 3 years or something like that. But this is a huge jump, especially when we're talking about not being able to give raises that we're really wanting to give raises to teachers and staff and everything, and then to give this huge salary. I have a really hard time justifying it. I don't have a hard time justifying giving a raise, but this is to me, it's too much at once.
Any other discussion? Jamie, go ahead.
I know Melissa had asked this question, but could we get a list of like additional duties that this position will take on?
Well, one thing I wanted to add to the conversation that we haven't touched on yet is originally when these positions were shifted, when Christy was brought on board, if you remember, we used to, our idea originally was to take a lot of the HR function off of the business manager position and shift it to the HR generalist. The reality of administrative, the function of HR, though, maintains with a business manager position. We weren't able to decouple them completely. It just isn't going to work that way. We would have to pay an HR generalist. Well, we wouldn't have an HR generalist. It would be a manager, it'd be a director, and we thought we could decouple those and make those two positions separate and more standalone. That's not reality. I think we underestimated the responsibility that would maintain to the business manager position. And to your question, Jamie, there aren't a lot of significant responsibilities that are going to shift in this position. We've talked about the big shifts that are coming from the responsibilities of the assistant business manager and those other two positions that you approved already. Where new responsibilities do come online is, as Dr. Larson had referenced, now there's going to be 2 full-time central office administrators at central office and not 3. So this year, somebody could come to Mr. Gaylor, they could come to Christy, they could come to myself, and now those responsibilities are mostly going to be shared between 2 people, Mr. Gaylor and Mrs. Grounds. And so there's going to be responsibilities that are simply added. The finance responsibilities, Mr. Gaylor is a highly intelligent, very capable administrator. He hasn't had as much. He's going to catch up really quick, but he doesn't have the level of finance background and budgeting background that we have had. And Christy's going to have to, and Mrs. Grounds is going to have to take on much more of a leadership role in those areas. And that's going to be a shift from what we have right now. And I'm going to advocate, this is the recommendation that I provided in the past, so of course I support it. But I would say, and to Melissa's question, and I completely understand. I understand the trouble that you would look at from one number to another number and say, boy, that's sticker shock. I get it. We had those internal conversations too. This is about placing the appropriate salary on the position. And Melissa, you're right. There has been a number of times in which we have looked at this position, but we've never gotten it to the place that it needs to be at. And you can do that over time, or you can do it at one time. But the reality is no matter how you structure it, it's less than what a peer should be, and it's less than what is deserved for the position and the responsibilities that we're asking of the position. If you look at the proposal that I had provided on the realignment, in the past. You'll see this, you'll see the districts, and this goes to Mr. Rohr's question, the comparisons that we were looking at, some larger, some smaller, and some in our range. We don't have a great comparative. There isn't a, it's very difficult for Jamestown to find a comparison that we can look to and say, that's it, that's it. Now we used to have some of those. Dickinson used to be a great comparison. Valley City and Wapaton used to be a great comparison, but they aren't anymore. The size discrepancies makes it a really hard comparison. That's why I think you do two things. One, that we provided that comparison of salary, and we had 9 districts: Bismarck, Fargo, West Fargo, Minot, Grand Forks, Mandan, Williston, Dickinson, Jamestown, and Devils Lake. Those are the ones that we looked at. But it's also just as important to Mr. Tweeton's analysis of looking at, well, what is the district's, what not only is a salary comparison to one position, but what is the whole department's comparison to us at a percentage of our budget? And that's where Mr. Tweeton is sharing that in reality, the recommendation and all of what is put together in central office puts us right at the mid-range. It doesn't put us high, it doesn't put us low, it puts us in the mid-range. And to me, if you look at the recommendation that exists, it does put you at the midpoint. And what would you be hiring? Huge financial risk, right? As a district, huge risk to look at succession planning and what would we do if we were hiring that position right now. I think you would have to be in this range, because the reality is we tried to split those positions, and it didn't work very well. And a lot of those roles maintained on the business manager position, and they have to. That's the way we're structured. We aren't large enough to have an HR director. And we can have a generalist that takes on a lot of duties, but it is not, we can't separate from that position. She's going to have to maintain those duties as a business manager and HR director. That's just, I think it's a better recognition, Jamie, of what we actually are asking that position to do, more than a restructuring. The restructuring was the other positions. This is a recognition that you have now 2 administrators instead of 3, and that those responsibilities between the 3 of us have shifted just a little bit, and the responsibilities are greater than they were a year ago. Just one last point, if you look at the daily rate is really, to me, where if you're looking at the comparison piece, Mr. Tweeton did a great job of showing or telling us that we're at the mid-range in terms of total outlay and commitment for administrator percentage of our budget. But I do think the daily rate tells quite a story. In Jamestown, that daily rate, $412.95. If you go up to the highest end of that, that's $807.96. If you go to the midpoint of those 10 comparisons, it is $565.38. So the gap there is about $150 a day. And that's the difference between the midpoint and where the business manager position is in Jamestown. That's a big gap. And I think if you're going to do it, you're either going to nickel and dime your way to get to where the position you need to be is, or you're just going to say, this is where we need to be. And we're going to, instead of dealing with this every year or every couple of years and having the same conversation around, well, what should the right salary be, just get it done. So that's my thoughts on the matter.
Aaron.
Yeah, and just kind of build on that a little bit too, the historical context when we opened this position and ended up and hired Christy. From where we were at, there was a $30,000 difference sitting right there from the day one. So from the word go, we were 30,000 behind. And so this is, yeah, we've done some incrementals, but this just gets us into where we need to be.
Jamie.
I guess my concern is, I know that we're trying to right size, and I get going there. I just find it difficult to put this out when we've been trying to right size support staff and starting teacher wages for the last several years. And that hasn't been done all at once. It's been in increments because that's what our district could afford. So I just worry that this gives like, we value admin over our support and teaching staff to our stakeholders, I feel is just what it said.
Dan?
And my response to that one is business manager is the last at the table at this point. The realignments that we've happened over the last couple of years, they've gotten priority, but we've kept the business manager until kind of the end.
Aaron, go ahead.
Yeah, and just to Dan's point there, we've had made targeted adjustments to those other groups as well. We haven't done the entire support staff at once, but we did this priority group, and then we moved on to this priority group, and then we've done that with others as well. And then back to Dan's point, now is the time for the business manager.
Dr. Luck?
I would just draw attention to two things too. And Mr. Rohr and Mr. Tweeten could speak to this well too. But if you remember a couple of years ago, there was a realignment in the salary schedule for our teachers. You're asking specifically about, different groups. And that was done because when the freeze occurred a number of years back, there became big differences or compressed differences between teachers, and the negotiations units came together and really pushed a lot of dollars towards creating appropriate levels between each of those positions. That was very, very costly. The other fix that was made was some of our teachers came into the district at a 10-year cap. We didn't have a cap, then we created a 10-year cap, and then we removed the 10-year cap. And so that was giving those teachers back any years beyond 10 that they weren't granted initially. And those were some pretty significant, I can't remember the total numbers, $16,000, $18,000 for some. That was, to right size based on that change. The other thing that I haven't heard yet, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's a recommendation that you acted on earlier to change that Finance Committee had discussed, and it was in Mr. Roberts' report. But some of those financial and investment recommendations that have come through have netted the district significant amounts of dollars. The one that would the transition from where we're banking now to the recommendation, I think the net impact of that is like $23,000, $24,000. That's just in one individual doing research and talking with institutions and making that change for us. And that doesn't include the investments that come that are we approve, and we look at those changes. Well, the Finance Committee looks at those changes and makes recommendations for length of certificates of deposit and things like that. But you're talking significant amounts of revenue that have come in that we weren't getting in the past. I mean, we're talking probably in the last 4 years, $100,000+ of additional revenue that's been brought in. But those are the expectations that we have, and I just wanted to make sure that we reference that as well.
So we have a motion and a second on the table for the business manager position with the Finance Committee staffing recommendations. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Jamie, did you have any other questions about the staffing alignment adjustments? Okay. Okay. Any other discussion? If not, let's do roll call. Christy?
Dan Tweeten? Yes. Aaron Roberts? Yes. Steve Belkamp? Yes. Melissa Gleason? No. Jamie Bear? No. Heidi Larson?
Yes.
Jason Rohr?
No.
Jacob Meyer?
Yes.
5-3.
Okay. Motion approved. Moving under policies and procedures, we have approval of policies. Is the board okay if we do all these together at one time? Okay, anyone you want to pull out for questions? Okay. Number 1, amended policy AACA. It's a section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 with the attached amended AACA-AR, section 504 evaluation standards and procedures. 2, amended policy DDCA, legislative political leave. 3, amended policy DDBC, bereavement leave. Number 4, amended policy ACDA, technology use policy for students and staff. 5, amended policy BGA, board communication with the public. 6, amended policy BEC, school board evaluation. Is there a motion? Motion by Melissa, is there a second? Second by Dan. We have a motion and a second for approval of policies 1 through 6. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Under tuition, approval of tuition agreement for the 2026 to 2027 school year, number 1, Yellowstone. Is there a motion? Motion by Melissa? Second by Jason. We have a motion and a second for approval of tuition agreement for the 2026 to 2027 school year, number 1, Yellowstone. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Under other, there's the election update. Christy, did you want to comment on that or questions or?
Just Mindy Skungberg is our new, unofficially, our new board member to replace Dan Tweeten. And it will become official once the canvassing is completed on the 22nd.
And then, once that's completed, we'll welcome Mindy to our July meeting for the transition. Any items for future agendas? Jason, go ahead.
And to the board retreat also?
Oh, yep, yeah. Oh, yes, yep. We'll
Okay.
get to that here, yep. Any other items? Any other items? Okay. Meetings to be scheduled. We have the GED graduation, which is this Wednesday, June 17th at 6 p.m. at the Career and Technical Center. Facilities Committee meeting on Tuesday, June 23rd, 2026 at 5 p.m. in the District Office Conference Room. We have our school board retreat on Thursday, June 25th, 2026 at 5:30 p.m. in the District Office Conference Room. And just a note, thank you to Jason Rohr, is going to be Mindy's new mentor. And Mindy, an invitation has been, a formal invitation will be extended to Mindy for, if obviously they're all open to the public, but a formal invitation will be extended if she'd like to join us for that retreat and connect with Jason at that. We have a school board meeting on Monday, July 20th, 2026 at 5:30 p.m. in the Thompson Community Room at the middle school. We may have a special meeting before the board retreat. We'll just see how things come together. And so it'll be very short, like 15 minutes before. And so we'll look at the timing of the scheduling of that, but we'll just do it right before and then move into the retreat. But I'll keep you updated on that. We also, there's a good chance we may have a finance and a strategic planning meeting prior to the July board meeting. Those have not been scheduled yet. We have to get some doodles out with people's vacations and those kinds of things, trying to find a day and time that might work. You do not have to do the monthly superintendent evaluation today. And instead, I'd like to take the time to, and we did have a reception, a farewell reception prior to the meeting. And we like to thank Dr. Leck for all of his years of service to our district. We've done a lot of things under his administrative leadership. We have a strategic plan. We have financial priorities identified, and we're really making a lot of progress in our district. And through his leadership and through the board's leadership, I think we have something to be very proud of, and we're very grateful for everything that he has done, and Sadie as well, for our district. And so we just want to take this time to thank you. Anyone like to make comments? Jamie, go ahead.
Yeah, and I know I've told you this before, Dr. Leck, but not only the work that you've done for our district, but what your family has brought to our community is invaluable as well, so I appreciate that.
I do. I've said this before, 13 years in Jamestown Public Schools, I do think that we've done wonderful things. I think that we have made great strides. There's still many things to do, but we have made great strides, and I know that we're on the right trajectory regardless of who sits in a chair or has a certain title. I know that we have, a wonderful trajectory, and I want to thank everybody in this room for everything that you have done for me. It's been a blessing to be the superintendent of Jamestown Public Schools. Has been a blessing to be part of this community. And as far as the community is concerned, I hope they recognize the great board leadership that you have all provided to the community. Sometimes we take boards for granted, and they are just there and they are making decisions. You had a great example of what boards are supposed to do today. You had very tough conversations. You had differences of opinions, and throughout that conversation, you could have that level of conflict and disagreement, and you could come to a decision and you can move on. That kind of leadership, we might even take it for granted. It is not typical all the time. And I hope that the community understands the kind of leadership it has in this board. And you have all done wonderful work, and you will continue to do wonderful work. And thank you for your service, because it is tough. Your jobs are really, really challenging. In the community, the district is fortunate to have you. So thank you, and thank you for everything. I've learned something from everybody in this room. I've learned something from everybody that served in the Jamestown Public Schools before you, from our support staff all the way through board leadership. I thank everybody, and I will miss you all. I like board meetings. I don't know if you could tell that because I don't ever stop talking, but I like board meetings. I look forward to them, and some of that is just working with all of you and just the work that you do. So again, thank you very much.
And thank you. There being no further business before the board, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.